Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mupo and Friends. We are,
Jessilyn Pearson,
and I'm Michelle Mupo,
and we're brought to you by Mupo TV.
and you could catch all our shows at www.mupotv.com. That's www.mupotv.com, and tune in every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, because that's when we air Mupo and Friends. And I have to say, we've had a lot of guests, and I say this every week that tell us stuff we don't tell that they never tell anyone. Who are we kidding?
Yeah, you sure do. But you know what I love when we're asking them a question and you see them go, "That's a good question," and you know you've stumped them right there. I mean, they always answer, which is awesome, but it just goes to show there are a lot of questions out there that people want to know that haven't been answered.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with our guests.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Move On Friends. Our special guests today are an award-winning filmmaker and critically acclaimed playwright, as well as an actor, screenwriter, director, and producer. His feature directorial debut, The Institute, will be released on March 22nd. And we're lucky enough to also have the Institute's producer and brilliant costume designer. Please welcome Hamza Zaman and Chelsea Roth.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi.
First off, thank you for coming to the show. And I want to know what sparked your idea for your feature film, The Institute.
Well, there's a couple of ideas that, it stems from. One was actually having a child and kind of leading up to that. It was kind of like that pressure that comes from this, sort of started my mind rolling. And, it's more for the women, right? This is not necessarily, I don't want to pretend like my own pressure has anything near what, you had to deal with or, but it started my mind rolling. And then I started researching and asking the questions and trying to find out what is it like, what is the process like? And I found out from some of my friends that, actually getting, I mean, this is sort of a taboo topic, but, like reproductive assistance, therapies, and so on, it hasn't talked about enough. And it's a sensitive topic. And I didn't necessarily set out to make a documentary on it, but it just got my mind rolling and how, a power dynamic between, the doctor and the person giving this kind of treatment and therapy and, the desperate men, women, people that want to start a family and how that could be sort of used, abused potentially. And it kind of lent to the main story.
So, did you have a real facility in mind when you created the clinic in the film?
Well, we were doing some location scouting in my mind. Ideally, as an indie filmmaker, you can't really guarantee that you're going to have an entire large facility, but I wanted something that was commercial, that had an expanse and that was very secluded. So it's not just like that. This is a high tech facility, but it's also in the middle of nowhere. So what do? You're in this place, but surrounded by natural beauty, but maybe sometimes things are not all they appear.
Hmm. And what led you two to meet, like to join forces in this? I know you guys are married, but how did it begin?
It began with us getting married, actually. we,
It began before that.
yeah, when we first started dating, I had been a writer for many years as a child. I think my first screenplays are when I was like 14, 15,
Wow.
16, that time frame. So when we first met, I was working and, I've always been, working kind of an industrial, I would say, I would consider it, even though it's white collar jobs. So I always had this passion and I finally met somebody that appreciated it, and that was Chelsea. No one else had really um, supported it, thought it was worth it, didn't think it was a waste of time. And, Chelsea worked in Broadway for many years. And so it was really, really a nice feeling. So we started making projects together, writing the plays. She would help produce them, making short films, we kind of produced them together. So we sort of already evolved. I had sort of a well of written thought, and we met at a writers group, actually. It's funny, but Chelsea has to
That's
get
where it
back.
all began.
That's where it all began. Yeah. So, and then we just started putting these projects together. So I really don't think I would have had a career, without Chelsea. I would just had a bunch of stories sitting in a drawer.
So when directing yourself in a film, have you ever watched it later and felt you should have gone in another direction?
Yes, I feel that I should have done a better job as an actor, or maybe hired somebody else. But sometimes you don't always have the ability to reshoot some of this stuff.
Absolutely. So, what drew you to horror and sci-fi, the genre? What drew you to that?
Well, so the first story I ever tried to make was with two of my high school friends, and it was a horror movie because that's what we're into, in 14, 15. My personal favorite genre is sci-fi because it's just what I read. I'm an old sci-fi nerd. I was always read the sci-fi books. I still do.
Excellent.
It's my favorite topic. So the media also kind of like movies, TV shows. They all kind of came later. But my first love was cartoons, sci-fi cartoons, robots, all that. Maybe that's pretty common. But then reading a lot of sci-fi. Kind of early the greats, Asimov, Heinlein, those guys, and really kind of building that foundation for what helped me think about what is not just in this world, but what this world could be turned into, what the future holds, what could be greater than I see around me. So I would credit it with inspiring the majority of my stories, actually.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with our special guests.
Welcome back to Mupo and Friends with Hamza Zaman and Chelsea Roth.
Thank
In
you.
Tribe, what has brought the world to that post-apocalyptic point?
That's a good question because my film before then was called Sickness, and it sort of ended with the world ending. So I thought it was just appropriate to kind of have my next film be, post-apocalyptic. I hint at it. I don't know. I think it got cut on the cutting room floor, but I hinted it was some sort of radioactive Armageddon because there's roving bands of soldiers around, and they're like the only ones that kind of like control the situation. But I don't think we made it into the final cut. That was the original intention, was basically sort of a military catastrophe, which now that I look at the current situation with the Ukraine and Russia, maybe a little. I hope it's not prophetic like Sickness was.
Yeah, Sickness ended up getting released the day that the pandemic was like announced by the World Health Organization, ironically.
Yeah, it went up on Amazon that day. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, Chelsea, this question's for you. What actually inspired you for the costumes in Tribe?
The costumes in Tribe. It was just like that, like apocalyptic vibe, just like it was kind of like a cross between what items were left and salvageable and in what condition, and then some more natural things that our ancestors are or very early ancestors would have to rely on, like furs and found objects and rope and like so it was just like this like like cross between worlds, like like what was left of the old world and what do we have to do now with our needs, with our need to stay warm and everything. And the leading character, who was kind of like the boss, I really wanted to make him like a little bit like decorative, like even in this situation, as well as the leading female who kind of saves the day. I wanted to make them like a little bit more special, like they actually had a little bit time or like wherewithal to be decorative, or to be like make themselves a little more important even in the current situation. So that was the idea.
Do you want to tell them this funny story about the deli? Yeah, so basically our lead, we just got done with the shoot. They stopped by, the local deli, and we're going into to buy something, and the front counter girl is like, "What are you hunting?" Because they just had like the blood and the fur and all this stuff over him.
And he affectionately called his main wardrobe piece, which was like these like dreadlocks of like fur and blood. He called it the octo fur.
It's like tentacular.
But I think it was like just them like having fun and going in there like deadpan, like nothing was like up. You know what I mean? That created that situation.
Just going up to a store like they just, stepped out of a
just a day in the life,
Exactly.
That's cute. Global consciousness came through in your films. Has that awareness always been a part of you?
I think so. It's because of my family and travels and just kind of always meeting people that are international, in school and as a child. I always have been somebody that thinks more of like the planet as a whole necessarily, nationalism and kind of like, I love this country, but just thinking about the planet as a whole makes me feel it's just a little more appropriate when you take care of, the environment as a whole. It's too interlinked now. And, the planet is just, the world is too small. We, between our technology and, the power that we have with, either splitting the atom or whatever, or now fusing it, which should be coming online pretty soon. The decisions, one small part of the world makes really impact the whole globe. So I think that has been something that kind of stuck with me, maybe from the sci-fi we talked about, when you're talking about galaxies and civilizations that, spans, hundreds of light years. When you think of our, little tiny ball, it makes you realize how delicate it is and how we all kind of have to respect our interlinking.
So true. Now, did the onset of the pandemic panic you or actually inspire you?
So we were in Manhattan, Upper West Side. And when that Friday that they kind of announced, the closures, I took Chelsea, we took our son, who was 1 month old at the time, and I ran, we ran to the mountains, and we really haven't been back, unfortunately, So I could say it's a little bit of a panic there, but, we still go down to New York I go down every week or two. And as far as inspiring us, doing the shoot, filming over COVID, post-production over COVID, finding all that. Chelsea, again, I'm going to give all the credit to her because, she did the research to build the pod, to find the right place where we could store everybody, all the paperwork. And yeah, it must have been very nerve-wracking. It was very nerve-wracking trying to do a production during COVID and making sure no one got sick. And, thank God no one got sick on our production.
Yeah, it was very, it was scary for everyone, but when you feel like you're responsible for the company, and just making it safe for everyone, and also like, honoring the investors' investment, hoping it doesn't shut down. It was very stressful. But on the other hand, I had a day job before COVID, and I was on hiatus, so I was able to do a lot of production work. Which was just, helpful from that point of view to get us rolling.
Yeah. See how things happen? Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with our special guest.
Back with Hamza and Chelsea. Having written for the theater in the past, is that something you'd like to explore further in the future?
Yeah, the theater's, it's a whole different animal. Chelsea, I'm again gonna give credit to her that, she was really the playwright and she really inspired me to do this. I wrote that one act play, and we got it produced and it won the little contest. And, that was expanded to our first full length production, Fresh Meat. So, it was all basically with her tutelage, but the idea of the theater has always really intrigued me because, you only get that one take. So I've written for the theater, and there's something magical about being in the same room, right? setting it all up, getting the, I directed a play for that somebody else wrote, and I turned it into like a musical. I brought in another band, and it was like I call it like a baby Broadway show called the Bohemians on the Upper West Side in New York. There's a small cafes. It's like a theater called the Triad. So we had a live band and a play, and basically it was about a musician. That's what inspired me. The play was written about with a lead as a musician, and then we kind of integrated his concerts and his like gigs into the show. So that kind of live vibe, is impossible to do in a film. I mean, you could probably do it more accurately, when you have multiple takes, but you're not going to get that feeling of being there with the production. Now,
tell us about your production company, Headless Films. What made you come up with that?
Well, I think it's for an egalitarian ethos. Basically, I know in this world, everybody kind of like in the theater and TV, the writer is the king, and in film, it's the director. And I'm not pretending I'm some kind of rebel or anything, but I don't really believe in artificial hierarchy so much. We're all humans. Everybody's perspective is important, and I think that people give a little too much credence to like how much money you make, what 3-letter acronyms you have behind your name for your education, or what job you're able to get through whatever connections, or or through talent. So it's like it doesn't necessarily change if you're a good person or a bad person. I've met many people that are quite successful that I would consider less than positive influences, and I've met many people that didn't really come from a lot, didn't have a lot of opportunity, but their heart, their integrity is something I would take in a every time in a million years over some of the other more wealthy and influential people.
So Distant Bodies was a project inspired by the concept of an exquisite corpse. What was your involvement with that?
Wow, you guys do your research. So this was like a little COVID project where there was a poet who was working on, kind of a little COVID art project. And we just submitted, I submitted a little poem, and it was a collaborative nature. So people would write a few lines of the poem, and then you would write a few lines of the poem / prose / story. And then you would submit like a little art piece, like a little video. So I told them, I'm a filmmaker, and that, I also write, and they kind of brought me into this project, and it was really fun.
Now that's how it works, and people don't even realize that. Now, what's on the horizon for the both of you?
Well, we have a couple of other, films that we're making right now. We're just pushing the Institute. This is our last 3 years, our last 1,000 days of work. Finally, a week away from hitting the market, and then I have a TV show, 2 TV shows, 1 comedy, 1 drama, and another 2 films. One which we're gonna probably self-produce again and independent, and then another story that we're going to shop around to get a larger production behind.
Beautiful. And we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with the conclusion of our interview with Hamza and Chelsea.
We're back with Hamza and Chelsea. Before we wrap things up, we have one last question. If you were to interview yourself, what question would you ask, and what would the answer be?
Chelsea?
Oh, I'm going to throw it back to you. I need a minute.
If I wasn't interviewing myself, I guess I have to ask the basics, like where do you get your ideas from? But that is a really, kind of obvious question. So I don't know if that really fits or suits, but I'm always interested in where people get their ideas, how they get their ideas. It's a matter of a professional courtesy, really, because it's different for everybody, but I think it's the same for everybody, right? It just kind of like happens. It's based on what you are afraid of what you're into, what stories really you're passionate about, because this work is so difficult and takes so much time. And you really have to either love the story or love the process or love the message or love something about it, because otherwise you're just not going to be able to get through to the other side.
Well, what kind of came to mind was kind of like a one of our dear friends was hanging out with us one night, and she just kept saying, like, very like jokingly to Hamza, like, I've been asking all night, what's wrong with you? And then at the very end of the night, she's like, but what I really should be asking is, what's wrong with you? And we always thought that was like funny, but I mean, she meant it very lovingly. And like, I took it kind of as like a question, like, how do you guys get along so well? How do you guys like get each other?
Right.
And why are you into like all the crazy things that you're into together? And like, I just think that makes everything like more interesting. It's like so much fun to like spitball ideas and like just kind of grow creatively as a couple, like, as well as like all the everyday things. And they just like, it just makes life a lot more interesting and a lot more fun to like kind of go about it like together, and also have like this creative aspect to it all. So
Awesome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure visiting with you. Look for Hamza Zaman in Tribe on Amazon Prime, Sickness on Plex.tv, and Tango Shalom on Amazon Prime. The Institute will be released on multiple VOD platforms, satellite and cable networks, and on Blu-ray DVD at select retailers on March 22nd. You can also see Chelsea Ross costumes in Tribe and the Institute. You can follow, like, and subscribe to Hamza on Twitter at Hamza Zaman, and on Instagram at hamza.zam. You can also visit the Institute at http://lands.institute-lirs.
Or at institutemovie.com.
Perfect.
And as always, thank you for tuning into Mupo and Friends, courtesy of Mupo TV. And you could catch this show and many others at mupotv.com. That's mupotv.com.
This is Jessilyn Persson with your host, Michele Mupo.
Until next time, have a Mupo awesome week.